Pugh. That'll do it! That will do it! Pugh for Bournemouth! The roof of the Gold Sands is raised! Everyone here knows what that could mean to this football.
So let's talk about the Norwich game. Hello, AFC Bournemouth fans. Hope you're doing well. Last night, Boscombe were unceremoniously dumped out of the Carabao Cup at Carrow Road at the hands of Norwich City in a performance which has left many a cherry scratching their head this morning. We were humiliated, we were outplayed, and we were schooled. Norwich exuded confidence, whereas the second, maybe third string Cherries looked anything but confident. So to detangle this, we'll try to do it as logistically and logically as we can. So to help me, we've got a number of one amazing Cherry fans that travelled last night. It's our own Tom Jordan. Tom, how are you?
Oh, I do love playing away, mate.
You do love playing away. And firstly, credit to you and the, 200, 300 others that made the trip. Your loyalty knows no bounds, mate. So well done for that.
Thank you. Yes, you can't. You can't. You got no divine right to win football matches. We know what we're signing up for. You never want to see that, but it does happen now and again. But yeah, credit to all the other fans as well. We stayed till 90%. I would say stayed till the end. And Scott Parker must have looked at us, and the players looked like, blimey, these lot have all stayed behind, clapping us off. Cheering and stuff like that. So, credit to the fans, really.
So if you see Tom Hull in the stadium or at the pub, buy him a beer. And in fact, if you know anyone that went, buy them a beer. I think Rampant Rico, he's changed his name since then. He was there. A number of others were posting photos of Carrow Road. But unfortunately, it wasn't to be for AFC Bournemouth. So, Tom, with your first-hand evidence, we can decide after our first loss in 5 competitive games at the hands of a very well-oiled Premier League side, whether we're really right to be throwing our toys out of the pram and clamouring for refunds and going on like some Cherries are on Twitter and Facebook this morning. Yes, Norwich did pull us apart, and yes, we should be angry and frustrated. I wouldn't go so far as to say that it was a freak result. We were every bit humbled, but 4 of the goals were down to individual errors. That doesn't happen every day. Passes astray, turning into trouble, misjudged runs. It's almost like these guys hadn't played together before, Tom.
Well, they hadn't, have they? And yeah, listen, it's as I alluded to at the start, it's frustrating, but I'm certainly not. I'm not one of them fans that says demands a refund. You know what you sign up for. Like I said earlier, it is what it is. It was one of their nights, unfortunately, and a lot of individual errors. And credit to Norwich, they punished us. I mean, they don't finish them chances and capitalise on our errors and say we only lose a couple nil. We're probably not throwing our toys out the pram so much. But it was one of them nights. Norwich were decent. It was 2 teams that were. Yeah, a lot of changes, but their changes seem to be players that were really trying to get a first-team start. Do you know what I mean? And some of their new signings, I think, scored a couple of goals. And Brandon Williams, on loan from Man United, has just come in. They're not. Whereas our new players are players that have never played professional minutes. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, there was a difference, and I did think there probably would be a golfing class when I looked at the team lineups, but you never want to get beat 6. So it was frustrating and it was poor. But yeah, that's not for our toys out the pram. It is one defeat, and yeah, Scott Parker's got a lot to have to work with at the moment. It's very difficult for him, but it will be a wake-up call.
Yeah, you could argue that Norwich side haven't really played together as well. But like you say, when you possess the nous and experience that they've got, it is a different ballgame. And like you say, a lot of their players are on the edge of the first team, whereas I think you can argue that many of ours, even if they had a great game, would not be. So therefore, was there really the incentive? I'm not so sure. I mean, I'm not sure what, as fans, we really expected, really. Like you say, if we'd have lost 2-0 or 3-1 or something, we'd just shrug our shoulders and call it a learning curve and move on. But in a weird sort of way, maybe it is good to get humiliated because we realise there are some issues. Maybe a 2-0 loss, we would have just carried on. And look, we're talking about all these academy players. Yes, there was some experience littered in amongst our academy side, but it was a mishmash of players. Let's just take a look at the team that started yesterday and the Norwich side as well. And Tom, come 6 o'clock when these teams came through, what were you thinking? Did you have your head in your hands at this point, or not so much?
Not really. I expected changes. I expected Nyland to get his chance in goal. Kind of. I mean, I probably didn't think we'd go camp, but I can understand it because we haven't got any fit right backs. I kind of expected it, so to speak. I thought there'll be a few left at home, and it being Billing and Solanke won't surprise either, and Lloyd Kelly, they've been crucial for us at the moment. I'm actually a little bit surprised that Brooksy started, to be honest. But yeah, I suppose he's had that suspension, hasn't he? So should be a bit fresher. Maybe that was the thinking. But to be honest, it was kind of what I expected. Wasn't sure if Rodgers get thrown straight in, but I expected Sadie because I expected a centre forward. So that was the difference. I expected a Sadie maybe for a Marcondes or a Kilkenny. Expected a centre forward up there. But apart from that, we did all expect changes, didn't we? So I wasn't too disappointed, but I also thought they'll probably have too much.
Was it worrying that there wasn't really a focal point up the top of the pitch with a dedicated striker there? That was the first thing that struck me.
Yeah, it's easy to say in hindsight because I think it's one of them things. If we go and win, everyone goes, "What a genius!" Do you know what I mean? It is one of them things. But I think as we'll get on to the way the game developed, it was so evident we didn't have a striker, and they knew it. And they had three centre halves a lot of the time as well. The way they were moving around, it was so easy for them. But I suppose Sadie was the only option. I still am a bit confused why he wasn't thrown in, to be honest. But he come on like with minutes remaining, which did surprise me because he's the only fit striker apart from Solanke we've got. But maybe Scott looked at him for his chance to try something if we weren't to have Solanke. But I want to be.
So we had a mix of promoted under 21s playing next to new loan signings, playing next to even newer loan signings, playing next to the four players who you could possibly consider proper first teamers, one of which has only just got back from injury. But that's no excuse. That said, it was a good chance for players to give their own first team ambitions a real boost. But sadly, from what we've seen from the highlights alone, it was a showing that was laden with bloopers, so much so that I think Dennis Norden or Jeremy Beadle would probably be up there chortling at some of the mistakes on the pitch at Carrow Road. And to me, Tom, when the players got out there, from someone that was listening in, and obviously you were watching there in the flesh, it had that feeling of when you're a manager of a Sunday League side and you're scratching around for players last thing on a Sunday, and finally you manage to get the 11. Now, we're not trying to suggest that players are pub players for AFC Bournemouth, but I think the concoction of Cherries starting against Norwich was never going to provide a fluid and cohesive performance, was it? No,
and I think you can look at it. I think a good example is, I remember like kind of the opening day of the season, we're playing Zamora and Anthony, and you down the left, and you think, oh, that's a bit, they're two youngsters that never really played, but they've played together down that left-hand side in the academy for years. I think what we're alluding to here is that we've got players all over the place that have there's no combinations there. There's no, do you know what I mean? There's no one, Brooks and Camp, how many times have they played, kind of together down that right-hand side? And how often's Pearson had Taylor and Kilkenny next to him? And, Marcondes playing this kind of false nine. And then you got the left-hand side is two players that have barely been at the club 5 minutes. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, it was a real, and to be honest, as soon as the game started, I think the worst thing is, there was not a single point in that game where I thought we could win this. Not a single moment in the game, mate. So that's really hard to watch and just think, I don't see how we're ever going to get anything out of this game. And like I say, it felt like we blinked and suddenly it was game over, and we're just trying to, keep the score down, really.
Yeah, that's right. And it was a chance where Scott Parker could have played some combinations that have played together, but chose not to for one reason or another, which perhaps suggests how important the Carabao Cup is to him. But let's just fast forward. We're going to go through each of the goals, and we're going to go through the moments on the pitch very shortly. But at the end of the game, I think one of the stories that we almost need to lead with is the fact that when you saw Steve Cook saying cheerio as the players were leaving the pitch, to you, it felt like it was almost more permanent than temporary. Is that right?
It felt that way, mate. It really did. It felt like a goodbye. Just the way he took his shirt off straight away and handed it to a fan. Was clapping almost like it almost looked like that feeling of, I can't believe this is going to be my last game. How it's ended. Put everything aside to the performance. Even Cookie knows he was poor. He'd been out a long time. He wasn't very good. He knows that, but for such a legend of the football club, if that's going to be his way to bow out, I'm gutted if that is the case. But we've been talking about it for a while, haven't we? Not sure if he's in Scott's plans. Then we signed Cahill, and you think, and then I kind of thought, when he's playing, is he just playing him because we haven't got the options, or is he saying this is his chance? I don't know, but it didn't feel right. He didn't look right either. He really didn't look right. He almost looked like he lost a yard. I mean, I guess he is just coming back, but yeah, it did feel a bit like that, mate. To be honest, I mean, I know they're all going to be kind of not very happy after the game, but yeah, kind of clapped, handed his shirt over, and then kind of went down the tunnel while everyone else, all the other players and staff, were still over clapping us. He kind of walked off. So yeah, quite sad, but the nice thing is he's probably looking up and seeing, you know, like I say, all the fans were chanting his name and stuff like that. So he knows, you know, we can put things aside. He's an absolute legend. Just be gutted if that's how it goes out for him, mate. Really will.
When you say the fans were chanting his name, how were they chanting it? Were they doing that C is for cookie chant or what?
No, it was just a bit of cookie. I gave him a bit of a salute and stuff like that. But you just want to. It's really horrible, isn't it? Because you can't actually like speak to them, and you want to be shouting to them and go, "Look, this was crap, but we love you, mate."
Yeah.
And, but yeah, it is what it is. I think there's a lot of people. I think it's very difficult in there because you almost get split between people that don't think he's good enough anymore and people that think, yeah, but he's such a legend, I don't want him to go. And I get it. But I think we've just got to look at it and think we have got a new era now with Scott Parker. If Scott Parker feels this is the time to go a different route, wants his own players, we've got to respect that. And Steve Cook's been absolutely magnificent for us. And I personally would I just want him to get a decent move. And, you know, he's not old. I still want him to have a good few years left in the game because he's been unbelievable servant. There ain't many better, is there? He's in that top bracket for me. So it would just be one of them really horrible. And you know, when we were saying about how so many players, including Eddie as well, left kind of, and it was COVID and we didn't really get to say goodbye and all that stuff. And it would feel like we've only, I mean, you can maybe say Stanislas, but it feels like we've only got Smithy left. So it's difficult because you know this era's got to happen. But I think a lot of us, you know, I'm like that, Sam. I find it quite tough. But yeah, I just would have loved him, even if he had just bundled a header in at 6-0. Do you know what I mean? I just wanted something to happen for him. And he certainly hadn't had nice trips at Norwich, had he?
No, he definitely hasn't. And look, we've got to not forget as well that the way the club is structured now is somewhat different. So the way that Parker feels about Steve Cook might not really count when you may have people that are above his level that don't particularly want him there. Now, we're not suggesting that that's the case, but it's a thing whereby Steve Cook needs to be happy and all of the members of the board and directors, the director of football and Scott Parker need to be happy with him. And I would really hope that Scott Parker can see the quality in him and can convince anyone that may have thoughts otherwise that he's an integral part of this club. But obviously they brought Gary Cahill in for a reason. And whilst we initially thought that his arrival didn't necessarily mean that Steve Cook was out the door, I don't know, maybe that means he is. And judging by his reaction, it would be sad if that was the way to see him go after a 6-0 loss, because, I mean, look, it doesn't taint his memory whatsoever because he is an absolute legend. However, like you say, it wouldn't have been the way he'd wanted to bow out. So we had a mismatch of players, as you say. So Rogers only had one training session at AFC Bournemouth. Taylor, barely any first team minutes. Nyland never played a single minute before. Kilkenny still young and relatively inexperienced. Leif Davis for the first time playing on his right side at the club. Camp, like you say, Weymouth, you know, he's had a number of loan spells, but not played in the first team for AFC Bournemouth. Steve Cook, as we just said, first team at the time he's played for ages. Ibsen Rossi, brilliant so far, but is still young. Glover, untried. Sadie barely had any first team minutes. So you're looking at 10 out of the 14 that are probably not really fit to be there, so to speak, Tom.
Yeah, and like you say, I think that's a good way of putting it, is that kind of mismatch of players really just kind of all chucked in. And it must be difficult because I suppose there's so many things where you think, right, who are the fitter ones? Who are the fresh? How can I get a few in there? So he's going, you know, I'll get Brooksy in because he had that suspension, so he's a bit fitter. And Marcondes started on the bench last game, but obviously he did come on for Stanislas early. He's trying to. It was difficult. I think it would have been really hard to put out a. We all knew it would have been a bit silly to play like a Solanke and people like that. So he was trying to get their rest in. Certainly isn't our priority. But yeah, it just didn't work on the day. There was too much mismatch, like you say. I mean, Brennan Camp, Weymouth last season, like you said. Carl Taylor, I think Southend. Ibsen Rossi, obviously we've been impressed with so far. Kilmarnock. it's Nyland's only just got to the club. Like I said, there's so much there. You think, God, this, and I'm looking at it. I was watching the game thinking, I feel like from a fan that Ipswich Rossi and Kilkenny are like, well, they're the experienced ones there. And it's bad. But yeah, it was, and the blend didn't work. And I think it's a bit of everything in the sense that I don't think the new players were very good. I don't think the young players played very well, and I don't think the experienced players helped them. So it was just one of them, the combination of all of it, where he probably thought, well, I can have these youngsters and hope the experienced ones kind of see them through the game. Unfortunately, them experienced ones didn't play well either, so it just didn't work.
And it wasn't long, 12 minutes, in fact, before Norwich took the lead. And the thing is, we know about Scott Parker's style of football is that we play a very high press, but when teams manage to get past that high press, then there was a chasm in the centre of the pitch and there was so much room. And we'll show a shot from that goal taken from Norwich City's YouTube channel used under Creative Commons license. And from there, Tom, it looks like he's offside, but at the end of the day, we haven't got the angle from when the ball was kicked. So it may have been that our defenders were going one way. The striker knew which way he was going to run and where the ball was going to come from. And that was the first goal there. But look at the acres in the middle of the pitch. However, it was a shot that deflected off the back side of Ibsen Rossi and eluded Nyland. And it was Norwich's new signing, Sully, who scored the goal for them. Not the start we wanted, eh?
No, it wasn't. And I think it's obviously I didn't realise what the image would look like. It's exactly what I was going to go on to, really, about it, in the sense that with this not playing a striker, we tried to play where we just get loads of bodies in that area as much as we could, almost like a bit of a box kind of with, I know it was Marcondes most of the time, but a lot of the time when he was dropping deep, then Brooksy could go in and do it for a bit, and Rogers could come in and Taylor could push forward and even Kilkenny. So we're just trying to get all these players in that kind of area. But then what was happening is when it was breaking down, the gap between the midfield and the defence was massive. So they would just have to play one pass and they're in. They were in on our back line every time. And I think the worrying thing about that was that didn't change. That never changed throughout the game. And you felt like obviously the first goal, you take it in isolation. But then when it keeps happening, I certainly didn't expect us to come out second half playing that way. So that was a concern. But yeah, we're quite far away from that end. But I wasn't sure. It did look like a deflection. So it was a deflection, wasn't it? It did seem like a weird finish. So I assumed it was. But broke away. And to be fair, they were clinical all night, Norwich.
Yeah, they were clinical all night. And throughout the game, it seems weird when you look at the stats, but we actually had the bulk of the possession, which absolutely seems bonkers, but we did. But they had so many shots on target. Of course, we know how many shots that we had on target as well. And it wasn't a lot. But before long, Tom, it was 2. And I don't know at what stage you were thinking, hang on a sec, this is going to be a goal route. But for me, listening in on the radio, I was starting to think, oh my God, here we go again. And this was a goal from Kenny McLean. And it was a goal from distance after it was worked into a central position from the left side. Nyland had no chance from this. So you're thinking, goal 1 and goal 2. Yes, you can talk about the offside or whatever for the first goal, but let's assume it wasn't. It was a relatively good finish. But goal 2, I don't think Nyland had any chance with.
No, it was a strike. It was a banger, wasn't it? It was a really good hit, to be fair to him. And that was in that spell of the game, in between that first and second goal, as you just mentioned, we had all the ball. And you thought it's going to go one or two ways. We're going to finally make the right pass and actually get a scoring opportunity here, or they're going to catch us on the break and that's going to be game over. And that's what it felt like, because they just kind of were waiting because they could see us playing all this football, but they ain't got a focal point. They ain't doing anything, because every time we moved it into a situation, we couldn't put the ball in the box. We couldn't thread a ball through because no one was making them runs because we didn't have a striker. So everyone was coming to feet. So it wasn't going anywhere. So the possession was almost false because they were letting us have it and just biding their time and actually quite clever with it. But like I say, yeah, it was a hell of a strike from him. And McLean, I don't think he's quite got into the team this season, but I thought he was very good on the night, actually. He was in the middle of the park.
Yeah, he very much was. And look, we've highlighted this particular part of the second goal. This was just a build-up play, and it was just the way that Gavin Kilkenny got sort of dragged back into it. And after Gavin Kilkenny, so you can see 5 on the pitch, there was just this huge space. And this is what, Norwich, they had a couple of players that then picked up the ball. And then it felt like they had a lot of time. So I'm sure that Scott Parker's going to be looking at our shape here, because it seems to me like there was just acres in the middle of the pitch when we weren't quite playing as a unit. Perhaps if we were a bit more close enough together, we could have put more pressure on the striker of that ball and, maybe prevented him scoring. But I suppose part of the press is that you will have players, high up the pitch trying to push them. Alas, it didn't quite happen for us on this occasion. So 2 became 3, Tom. And that was where Gavin Kilkenny was caught by McLean, and he quickly then released the ball after winning it to Sully on the left-hand side, who squared it to Rupp, and he caressed it home over the despairing Steve Cook challenge to make it 3. Norwich fans go wild. AFC Bournemouth fans head in hands, right?
That was my call to go and get a beer, actually, mate. But yeah, it was. I'll tell you what, it was reminiscent. I don't know if you were or if you can remember. I think it was the first season promotion in the Premier League. Obviously, they come up with us, and I remember going to Norwich and losing 3-1. I think it was. And O'Kane played in the middle of the park, and he just kept losing the ball at every chance. The type of player Kane was, quite similar to Kilkenny, probably not as high ceiling, but and Kilkenny was having their moments in there as well, where we've said it before, haven't we? Kilkenny's been brilliant because I love how brave he is, but it was one of them nights where every time he tried to do it, it just wasn't coming off. And once again, credit to them, they were ruthless. And at that point, I thought, get me home with 4 or 5 here, but that wasn't even enough. But it wasn't good. I mean, to be fair, I think the strike was all right, wasn't it? It wasn't. It was an error, but I didn't feel like that was another one where I didn't feel like it was the goalkeeper's fault for any of the first half, really.
No, it wasn't. And we've said before that Kilkenny's always going to have this pressure on him when he's in certain positions. And as you can see by the following shot here, this is where he got undone. And at this stage, as soon as McLean wins it, Norwich then just pushed forward, and we were left with a situation which I think was pretty much inevitable. They went on to score it, and then it was effectively game, set, and match. Alas, they were only halfway there. I keep on saying alas, got to stop, mate. Sound like Shakespeare. So we've had the first goal, which, is it offside, is it not offside? Second goal, wonder strike. Third goal, that's where Kilkenny makes a mistake. Like, nothing bad to say, about Gavin Kilkenny, because we know that he's a player that will just keep on doing that. And look, 9 times out of 10, it will come off for him. But he tried to turned into trouble. He got undone. Premier League quality, then took advantage. In the fourth goal, Ibsen Rossi, he gifted the ball to Kieran Dow, and he then fed the ball into the penalty area. But despite the save, Sargent netted home. Now, Tom, I gather this was the goal that you missed, right? Yeah,
it was. Yeah, I heard a roar, and I just turned the steward and he went, "Yeah, you stay down here and finish it, mate. If it's a fourth." But I heard that. I haven't seen it back, but I heard it was a decent save, and then, like you say, the follow up was good. I think one of the fans I was speaking to said that maybe Leif Davis could have covered a bit quicker or something. Their player followed in; he was hungry or whatever. But that's. So it's that typical figure that when you're like 3-0 down at half time, which you hopefully don't want to be too many times, you think, well, just don't concede early, just calm it down. You ain't going to win the game. You're not going to win the game. Just be sensible. And I bet Scott Parker was thinking exactly the same, almost like the weekend when we were 2-0 up. You go, just calm it down in the first 10. But want to be again. I just think don't get me wrong, I'm sure we'll go over this, but all the things we've said about the players that we had at his disposal, and how great Scott Parker's been, and how great the youngsters have been, etc., etc. You can still criticise certain things, and I don't get coming out exactly the same way that you do 3-0 down. You're 3-0 down at half time, and I'm not saying that means go 3 up front and try and win, because we're not going to win, but certainly don't keep this false 9 and just everything, nothing changed at all. And I couldn't understand it. Even if it's he done it later in the game, but I thought even if he brings on a Mepham now, just change something, at least try and surprise him a little bit, and just make it harder for him to just get through. And that surprised me that we made no changes. Even it didn't have to be personnel, but tactically, even if you just say to like a Rodgers, right, just could you go and be a striker? Just go and be a striker. You've played that before, because we need an outlet, and you've got a bit of pace, so we just need an outlet up there, but we didn't. And it was the same old, so not a good start.
Not a good start. And this is Ibsen Rossi making a pass to his left that should have been square, but it went diagonally forward, and it was just a bad pass. So it was picked up by the player at the bottom of the screen, which was Kieran Dowell. And at that point, it was effectively what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on 2 or 3. Once we had you know what, it was never going to happen. Of course, add Nyland to that, and that's 4. But yeah, just a really bad pass. So that was one of the more preventable ones, I've got to say. But then it was 5. Ibsen Rossi passed the ball back to Nyland, and from there, it was a simple pass that I think he was trying to feed Steve Cook, was intercepted, and it was an easy finish for Sully to get his second of the game. And when you actually look at the clip, which I don't even want to put it on screen, but I'm going to. He was trying to pass to the nearest red and black shirt to him. I mean, I'm not being funny. That's risky.
I mean, again as well, I think as players, I appreciate that we've got a lot of inexperienced players out there which might have come into it, but I feel like even at amateur level, Sam, if you and I were playing and we'd be told by a manager, this play out from the back, pass it, you try to do it for the manager. When you're 4-0 down away from home, game's done, you're getting humiliated. At moments like that, clear your lines. None of them away supporters want you to try and play that out. Just clear your lines. Just let's get us up the pitch. And I kind of thought we'd do that in the second half. Rodgers has got a bit of pace. We know Brooksy ain't a slouch. Let's get up the pitch a bit more, a bit quicker. Let's go direct for 10 minutes. Let's just alleviate the pressure away from our back line. Which, Cookie's just come back and the rest of them are so inexperienced. Yeah. It was, you could just about afford to do it when you've got you've got Kelly in there, you've got Smith in there, you've got a bit more experience. But yeah, Nyland didn't help himself there, and I felt for him because God, what a bad debut that was for him, letting in 6 goals, and definitely a fault for one of them there.
Yeah, very much so. So at that point, a lot of Cherries fans were despondent, as was Scott Parker. Now, we did make some changes throughout the game, which we will come on to, but I think we might as well just talk about the 6th goal whilst we were at it. And this was another blunder. And this time was Steve Cook who did it, actually, because, the ball reached him and he just sort of, with the outside of his right foot, I think he was trying to pass it on to Ibsen Rossi, who was like right alongside him. But he had a Norwich player right up his arse who just anticipated the pass much quicker. And then from there, they went through on goal, and it was Sargent who then ended up scoring. But once again, I'm going to show you, Tom, the clip that makes it look really bad. When you see it like as a still like this, you can sort of see that the ball's yet to reach Steve Cook. It's yet to reach Steve Cook. So from here, he's thinking, I'm going to play it square to my right. Surely you just launch it, wouldn't you?
At 5-0 as well. Do you know what I mean? Like winning 3-0, fair enough. But yeah, it does seem an odd decision. And that's the best way to describe the game. I think the decision making on the pitch. You can say what you want about. I felt that was it. Like we've said before, the accumulation of things in the sense that the fact we went with a false line, that's bad decision making from Scott Parker, in my opinion, which you probably agree with now. In hindsight, he wouldn't have done that. But there was bad decision making every time we got the ball, and this was another one. It was almost like every single defender just made a mistake during the game. From this, I don't see why he's trying to make that pass, but yeah, it felt like it was just icing on the cake for them. We just gifting them goals. That second half was awful, and that was the worst one because it was Cookie as well. And and 6. I don't know. There's something about 6. When it gets to 6, it looks a lot worse as well. But it just felt like here we go again.
I think we've also got to feel for Steve Cook as well, because he's a guy that has been captain for AFC Bournemouth for a long time. He's been stripped of his club captaincy, and it feels like they've effectively told him to find a new club. So how can they expect him to perform when he feels so despondent? I'm so sad if that is how it's going to pan out for him. And he's then put into a side, playing him alongside a 21-year-old for his first game back in 3 months. I mean, God, the writing was on the wall when you saw the team sheet there, I've got to say. And you know what? I hope that's not his last game, but I'm concerned it is. So myself and Tom, we're going to give our conclusion on what we think. But next, it's time to hear what you think in the 6. We did it at 6 this time. You see why? 6-word match reports. We're back in a moment. So yeah, make sure you subscribe for the latest Cherries content. Hopefully it's going to be a little bit more cheery than this, but let's go through the 6-word match reports then. We posted our tweet and we're going to go through a number of them, not necessarily all. Only ones with 6 words because there were some people that miscounted, which, yeah, maybe on a night like that, you can maybe forgive because I was needing to use both hands to work out the score. Kudos again to every fan that travelled, but let's see what some people said. Well, Heather started off by saying, I only need 4 words. Tom, he posted a picture of him drinking out of a cup, and it was a warm Carling by the sound of it. Matthew Adams, glad I didn't listen to that. Sam Davis, who's that guy? Was Steve Cook's wave goodbye permanent? We've covered that. Carol Toller did not take the cup seriously. Paul Kenwood, rubbish tournament, couldn't even watch it. Goal, 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 said Sammy Nell. Chris Root turned radio off after the 3rd. Phil, win Saturday and all will be forgotten, which is something that I'm sure we're going to come on to. Glad it's over. On to Hull, said Danny. 1 word for each goal conceded. Yeah, that was effectively why I did it. Ethan said, let's now concentrate on the championship. Well, Jeff has his suspension done, said Cherries supporter. Yeah, completely. Highs and lows make us stronger, said Martin. Mark Cole, good to meet you at the weekend. Performance and results needed against Hull. Abby said, Matt makes Blackpool look like a masterclass. Had to turn off Twitter notifications, said Liam. I'm sure your phone was red hot, Liam. Gary, Hull away, suddenly a huge game. Lack of depth is very scary. Terrible away evening, 4 hours away. Get your checkbook out, Jeff. Look, there are more. Morale will be shot to pieces. Are we Premier League level? That's 5, Daniel. Thank God it wasn't on TV. Must refund fans tickets, no question, said Jamie. But we spoke about that issue. Tom, I think we sort of expected those kind of comments, didn't we?
Yeah. Listen, I think what's interesting there is a lot of people are saying about the whole one and coming this weekend. I always remember that first game of the season, the West Brom game, and we were saying about that's a good point if we win at Forest, and we won at Forest, and we look at West Brom as a good point now, don't we? Because we beat Forest and we beat Birmingham, and even though it's a cup game, I think I totally agree. If I go to Hull and we win, I couldn't care less. Could not care less. If people like Billing and Solanke are on fire, you go bloody good. I'm glad they were rested. Happy days. If you want to play a false 9, that means Solanke's fit and firing for the league games, then we just got to dust ourselves off, haven't we? And we spoke about it after the Blackpool game with the leading 2-0 and them coming back. In the long run, it's really hard in the short term, but in the long run, these are lessons that a young group is going to be really key for him to learn. And for Scott Parker, he'll be learning a lot about his players. You learn more in defeats than you do when you're winning and everything's rosy. So it's good to get these out of the way while the window's still open, while Scott Parker's still deciding on his squad. So I think in the long term, we'll look at it and it might be a good lesson for all concerned. But as we keep going back to, mate, it was a mishap of players. I was thinking then when you were talking about Steve Cook, I don't reckon he's ever played a competitive game with any of his defensive players with him, Davis, Ibsen, Rossi, Camp, or the goalkeeper. I don't think he ever has. Not one of them. He never would have played with one of them. And that says a lot about that back line. And you look at it now and you think, of course, we were going to get beat quite heavily. So on to Hull, mate. On to Hull.
On to Hull. And Steve Cook certainly won't have good memories of Carrow Road. I'm absolutely certain with that. Now, look, lest we forget, this is a project. And we all talked about the Parker project at the start of the season. We all knew that, right? So however much we're losing our shit when we lose by a hefty amount of goals, it is a meaningless cup game. And it was a team in a higher division, similar to MK Dons against us at the start, at the end of last month. And in terms of a project, remember Eddie Howe had one. We got into the championship. We got battered by Watford 6-1. Next week or week after, we went to Huddersfield, lost 5-1. That season, we finished 10th. And then the following season, we got promoted. So if it's a project, we probably need to be thinking a little bit more long term. Things won't happen overnight. Announce someone, sign someone. Anytime Bournemouth tweet, announce someone. It's going to happen, but it's not going to be something that happens overnight. It's going to be a slow burner. And look, if we're teetering around the top half of the table, I would probably call that a success. Now, what did Scott Parker say about last night's game? Well, obviously, he wasn't best pleased. He did say it was disjointed. He said it was a tough night. We gifted them 3 goals. You could argue probably 4, Scott. But he did say the utmost gratitude to the travelling supporters. And look, Tom, were you singing throughout?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there was. It was really good. It was really good, to be fair. The supporters, like I say, 90% stayed to the end. I don't think anyone left kind of out of frustration. I think the only people that left like just before kind of probably normally do kind of thing. Players all come over. Scott brought the players over, like I say, and everyone was clapping and chanting the Scott Parker song and all that stuff. So yeah, and I think we've got to play a part with these young players. We're saying about how they've got these experiences and stuff. They need to know that the fans ain't going to turn on them as soon as they have a bad game. I personally felt like someone like Brendan Camp looked a bit out of his depth, but that shouldn't mean that's his career over at Bournemouth. Do you know what I mean? It was a difficult night for him, and a lot of them young players. But we've seen people like Ibsen Rossi come out of nowhere and be a good player, and that was the weird thing. I thought it was probably his worst performance in the Bournemouth shirt. I still probably thought he was the best of a bad bunch, actually, especially at the back. But like I said earlier, I thought the experienced players didn't step up. The one that disappointed me actually was Ben Pearsall. I thought he's the type of person that would have really grabbed them all together. Maybe that's a fitness thing as well. We know he's been unwell as well. So, but yeah, the supporters are brilliant. James McCaffrey and co at the back singing throughout. We had a few laughs. I tweeted earlier there was one point where when they missed, we were all like laughing at them, obviously ironically because we were losing 6 and singing the old Benicophobe chant, and I thought I'd take him now. Do you know what I mean? We could do with a striker like Benic now, but there were shoes off if you've got 10 toes, and it was we're all taking our shoes off and having a bit of a laugh, mate, because what can you do at the end of the day? And it does make you think sometimes when you're 6-0 down away at Norwich at a cup game on a Tuesday night in the rain, and you look around and the fans are still there singing Barmy Army at the end, and you think, we're all right, really. There's some idiots on Twitter and stuff like that. But when you're at a game, you realise, we're all right. A lot of supporters would have been booing the team off. I very rarely see that at Bournemouth. And that's nice. And yeah, we're just having a bit of a laugh about it afterwards. And it is what it is, isn't it?
We need to remember that the players are also going to be hurting from this as well. And look, if we're going to losing heavily isn't necessarily a bad thing if it provokes the right reaction. But as we know, Tom, it can go one of 2 ways. It can cause a siege mentality, which is all what you want to see demonstrated in Hull on the pitch, or it can knock confidence. And I think that the game against Norwich, it was poor for a mix of reasons. We had no centre forward. Brooks, I think, didn't track back enough to help the debutant Camp, especially with Brandon Williams pushing up as well for Norwich. I think, that was always going to be very difficult. And Norwich, look, they were absolutely up for it. And they had a really good gate. I've got to say, they had about 17,000 people there, which was really good for them. Obviously, a lot of them were in on cut price tickets. The kids chance to see their Premier League heroes in the school holidays. So why wouldn't it be packed? And the players, look, they wanted to perform for their young Canaries, etc. But I think it was just going to be a very, very tough night for us. And is this Parker Ball? Well, he can only be dealt the cards he's given, can't he? And Fulham fans, like scorned exes, they seem to be coming onto this channel and posting comments about him. They're acting like they care a little too much, Tom, I've got to say.
It's a bit odd, isn't it? I mean, they're doing all right as well. Just enjoy it. But they obviously, like you say, they've left us being a bit of a bitter one. Looking forward to that away day, definitely. But no, at all. I'm certainly, it was a disappointing night, but Scott Parker's come in. He's quietly impressed me, to be fair, in a very short sample size with what he's done with the youngsters and how he's got the group together. And we went to, I was with you for Forest and Birmingham and up against it in both them games. And the way he changed things in them games and the way he got the most out of the group to get 2 victories on the road was brilliant. But in isolation, the only thing that disappointed me last night probably was obviously the performances on the pitch, but was the fact that he didn't think, I kind of need to change something at half time. Maybe he would say he didn't have many options, but I think most of the fans there, we were just kind of saying, would there have been any harm at half time and just chucking Sadie on just so we had an outlet? That was it really. Apart from that, like you say, it was a game that didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. And like I say, lessons will be learned, etc., etc. and we'll be stronger for it. And like I say, it's just a shame that some of them players that could have knocked on the door, we're knowing with the injuries we've got, and they just didn't. You look at it kind of, maybe not Camp because he is further away, but someone like Davis playing on his natural side, I thought was really, really poor on the night. And people like Taylor, they've seen how Kilkenny's come through, and you will get your opportunity with Parker, and he just didn't quite do enough. And yeah, like I say, the experienced players, it just one of them nights, mate. Nothing happened. If you had to tell me, I don't know how I could possibly say a man of the match. I'm trying to think, and the only thing I can think is Sadie come on and nearly score with a header. So I might give it to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, impossible. But even us fans, we laughed at one point because we started singing School in the Morning to some of their young supporters, giving us grief, and forgot it was the summer holidays. So we didn't even get our cards right, mate.
No.
Nightmare of a night. But
Nightmare of a night. Well,
mate, it makes all the away days better when you expect,
does.
Whatever happens at Hull, if we go and win there, it'll be a little bit sweeter for myself and the ones that were there last night, because we know how bad it can be on the road, and like everyone does, we've had them kind of nights. So we'll win at Hull and all will be forgotten.
If you have a glass of Lidl Cola, what is it, Freeway Cola, and you've got like Coca-Cola, you've got to try Lidl Cola to realise how nice Coca-Cola is in comparison. So that's what it's all about, Tom. And all the others that travelled, round of applause. I think you did bloody amazing, and well done. And well done for Norwich for progressing through to the next round. I hope you get Man City away or something, and maybe you can get battered 6-0. Tom, pleasure to have your thoughts again.
Cheers, boss. See you at Hull.
See you at Hull. Up the Cherries. See you in the next one.